Have you ever considered buying a military surplus rifle? Whether you watched the movie 1917 and thought that the Enfield was just something you had to have, or you want something to impress your friends, or really just add a historic kind of asset to your collection, I felt the same way, and I have picked up the big three, the Mosin Nagant, particularly an M44 carbine variant, the #1 Mark III Enfield, and an Mauser, an 8mm Mauser. If anyone is interested in picking up a surplus rifle, hopefully this helps you make a decision. They are very cool pieces of history. This gun I'm holding right here is a #1 Mark III Enfield. This is a British-made Enfield. The Canadians also made them. The bolt design on these is very interesting. If you can see how smooth and how quick that is, when you lift it up, it almost springs back, making this rifle very, very fast. They had what they called the Mad Minute, where the British soldiers would see how many rounds they could shoot within 60 seconds accurately on target while reloading with stripper clips from the top. Has very small amount of trigger take up and then very crisp break. They were issued with just one magazine. These are detachable, but they didn't want the soldiers losing them, so they were told to feed them only with stripper clips from the top. It shoots the .303 British, which is a rimmed cartridge. This next gun I'd like to show you is a Mosin Nagant. This particular one is made in Hungary. These are notorious for having a very stiff bolt. This one actually is not bad, and a lot of them will have a loose trigger. This one is actually super crisp. This is the M44 variant, so it's a slightly shorter barrel carbine, and I can show you here. This bayonet flips out, which is pretty handy. Really nice how compact it is instead of sliding on like that. And then watch your hand always when you're folding that back in. But yeah, this is probably one of the more common surplus rifles you'll find in people's collections. Everyone remembers the days 15 years ago or so when you could pick these up for like 100, 150 bucks. My cousin did that. He has the rifle version, not the carbine. And so we might be shooting that later as well. This shoots a 7.62 by 5.4 rimmed cartridge. Ready? So far we've just shot the Mosin M44 and the Enfield, and I love them both in absolutely different ways. They're both a blast to shoot. The .303 British definitely had more of a kick than I anticipated. I should have expected it. It's much bigger than .308. Not quite as big as .30-06. That gun is extremely easy and very fun to run. This one, you will see me, I kind of have to sometimes hammer on the bolt to get it up or to get it down. With the pressure of the rounds, it's different than just running it like this. It feels very smooth. But when you're actually shooting it, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit hard to use, although there's not much that compares to just shooting the 7.62 by 5.4R round. Oh my God, that thing sounds like a cannon. It really kicks. It's something you need to experience in person to believe it, and that's part of the reason I picked this up. I shot my cousins, absolutely loved it compared to my 308 guns, and I had to have one. Last gun I want to show you guys is a Mauser. This was made on K98 tooling or 98K tooling. I get that mixed up. But this particular one is actually a Yugo. It is refinished to kind of resemble one of the German Mausers, as you can see. Interesting thing about the Serbian one, some of the Mausers had a little cutout here for the bolt handle, but this one does not have that either. It has the ladder sight. Some of the other ones, or all of the other ones actually, should be very familiar to a lot of you guys compared to a modern bolt gun, because Paul Mauser, developing the Mauser Action, of course, this is the bolt design that really went on to be popularized after the wars. This is ultimately the design that kind of went forward. Trigger for you guys real quick. Pretty nice. This bolt action in particular is very, very smooth. They added 2 locking lugs to the front and I believe 1 to the rear with a large kind of claw extractor. This was good for Magnum cartridges, and this design also allowed for them to do away with the rimmed cartridges. Really excited to shoot all these, and hopefully you guys enjoy.
Here we go. Not bad.
Stripper clip. Man.
Huh.
Did not feed right.
Bad round. Another bad round. Oh no, it didn't feed. Ooh, that was delayed. I could feel it.
Yeah, be careful. That was delayed too. Alright, so we just finished shooting all 3 guns. Actually kind of surprised the best shooter ended up being the Enfield, despite being the oldest, from 1918, is also extremely accurate. The Mauser seemed a little bit stiff on some of the rounds. We had a little bit of bad ammo, a couple delayed fires, and one that was just completely dead and did not fire. So the first gun of these 3 that I actually purchased, and the first one that we shot today, was the Lee Enfield #1 Mark III, and this one is a British-made example of the gun. I was honestly very surprised by this gun. As someone that doesn't have a whole lot of experience running a bolt gun, especially not running a bolt fast, this gun was extremely easy to run. It was very easy to run fast, and it was extremely accurate too. You will see that we had some double feeds and some minor issues like that. Those were user error and maybe not pulling the bolt all the way to the back to properly eject the round and then kind of shoving it forward, basically trying to feed a new round while the old casing was stuck in there. That happened a few times, and once I slowed it down again, it was just fine. The ammo that we shot was from the 40s. It was pretty old, shot flawlessly, and very surprisingly for the gun that is the oldest out of all of them, this one actually shot the smoothest. And from both of us speaking and shooting all of these all day here, this one's definitely both of our favorites. Impressions on the Mosin Nagant M44. This is the one gun platform that I actually have shot before because of my cousin owning the full-length rifle version of it. I knew a little bit of what to expect. Out of all of them, the action is definitely the hardest to run. You really have to take your fists and kind of like hammer it. If I was issued this, I would probably get shot and die while I'm trying to run this bolt on this. But it sounds almost like a cannon when you're shooting it. This round is pretty crazy. We had some really awesome fireballs that I hope show up on film. That round was designed for a much longer barrel, so especially out of this carbine version with the short barrel, it makes massive fireballs of the unburned powder at the end, which is a good way to die and give away your position if you're in war. But as someone that's just kind of collecting these, shooting them, enjoying them, it definitely is a lot of fun at the range or outside. So definitely a fun gun if you can find one cheap. I wouldn't pay an arm and a leg for one of these. Impressions on the Mauser in 8mm. This is a Serbian, Yugoslavian example. Honestly was a little bit disappointed by how this one shot. The action feels very smooth under dry fire. Trigger feels really nice. Feels like a solid gun. But we had some issues with extraction. When the bolt would get about here, it would get really stiff, and you would probably see in the video that we were slapping it.
It's some stiff sometimes. You gotta really slap it.
To the HK.
But overall, I expected this action to run a little bit smoother. Obviously, the exterior has been refinished at one point in time, but that doesn't mean that the internals and the bolts and everything is properly lubricated. I did my best to lubricate everything before shooting them and make sure everything was clean, but maybe if it was more thoroughly disassembled, we could get it to run a little bit smoother than it did. My personal opinion would be, if you wanted to pick up one of these three guns and you're really on the fence of what to get, since the Mosin Nagants are no longer cheap, my Mauser was honestly the most expensive of the three guns that I bought. These Enfields are actually a very good price. I would say a fair price would be $500 to $600 in one pretty good condition. There are number 4s which have better sights like I mentioned before, and Canadian models which just have a little bit better build quality to them. So if you're definitely looking for a shooter, those are ones to consider as well. The 303 British round is a little bit harder to find, but my local gun shop has a lot of kind of surplus stuff and older firearms, and he has tons of ammo for about 70 cents a round. So that's roughly the same price, that actually a little bit cheaper than 308 ammunition. For a bolt gun, you aren't going to run out of ammo as quickly, so really I don't think ammo should be a big concern for you. The recoil, everything was pretty nice. The sound just phenomenal, and out of all these guns here, this one actually holds 10 rounds compared to 5 rounds. So if capacity is something you care about, then that's pretty awesome too. And you can feed this. I do not own stripper clips for it currently, but 5-round stripper clips, 2 clips to feed it a little bit quicker. Definitely would recommend picking some of those up. Buy whatever you like. They're all fun. They all have their pros and cons, but I think out of the 3 particular examples I purchased, the Enfield might be my favorite.